Among the first Americans to witness the landing of English adventurers on the North American continent was an Algonquin-speaking Indian tribe known as the Pamunkey. Located on the Pamunkey River, a tributary of the York River in eastern Virginia, the Pamunkey Reservation, now hidden in the heart of their former ancestral homeland, once comprised much of the Tidewater area, including Jamestown. The Pamunkey Nation was led by the much venerated Wahansumakot, known by the English settlers as Powhatan. Once part of the Great Powhatan Confederacy, comprising 36 separate tribes, the present reservation is approximately 1,200 acres, an area rich in marshes and swamps. It is a region dominated by forests of swamp oak, pine, and holly. Although the Pamunkey live approximately 40 miles from the Virginia capital city of Richmond, the reservation is remote from the bustle of modern commerce. It remains rural in nature. The lowgrounds, which stretch for miles along the Pamunkey River, provide the Indians with a haven. The marshes and wooded islands offer sanctuary for a variety of wildlife. The Pamunkey tribe coexisted with this habitat long before recorded history. Although fishing and trapping have declined among the Pamunkey, largely because of diminished market availability, a few tribal elders continue to follow the ways of our fathers. Tecumseh Deerfoot Cook was chief of the Pamunkey from 1942 to 1984. He is one of the last of his generation to know the river and its surrounding treasures. Chief Cook knows how to harvest the bounties of nature, for he has been in tune with it for his 90 years.
I started fishing when I could only pull one oar. Instead of pulling two oars, I had both hands on one oar, and my dad would paddle the other side of the boat to keep it straight. I pulled one side, he paddled one side.
His father, Chief George Cook, began teaching young Tecumseh the river as soon as he was old enough to paddle and navigate the river, learning its secrets, passed on for countless generations. In the early spring, the people of the Tidewater region, both Indian and non-Indian, began to think fondly of the shad fish, particularly shad roe. The Indians have capitalized on the market for this delicacy for many generations, first for their own use and later to supply the needs of their non-Indian neighbors. During the last century, they marketed shad in Richmond, Baltimore, and other cities, following the run from Florida as far north as the Hudson River in New York.
You wouldn't want to believe this, but my mother used to knit these things here all the winter time. These had to be knitted, and now we buy them already knitted, but I don't see how in the world anybody could knit one of these.
What was purchased from the store as a piece of 5 1/2-inch mesh net, 300 yards long, is altered so that it can be thrown or cast across the river in what the Pamunkey call reaches. The alteration is done by hand using needles of Pamunkey Indian design. Tecumseh Cook uses a wood needle carved by his father, Chief George Cook, many years ago.
Now this needle I have in my hand, my daddy made that. This needle is probably 100 years old, and I'm still using it. Now this is a pale-face needle. This is plastic, and this is wood. So he didn't pattern after the white man patterned after him. So this was made long before the pale-face ever thought about one like this. So we throw that one aside. We throw that aside and use the Indian one.
300 yards of net must be attached to a line supported by cork floats. The floats are placed 16 ties apart. Ties are attached at every 6th square of netting, and the line must be even, so the net will not sag, but hang at a uniform depth in the water. If the net hangs too low in the water, it will catch leaves and sticks rather than shad. Once the nets have been prepared in this fashion, Chief Cook is ready for shad fishing. But before he stretches the nets across the river, he must study and follow the tide.
So in order to, if you want to put the nets out just one time, you put in a tide gauge. See, the tide's going out now. The tide is falling offshore and it's running down the river. You put in your tide gauge. Now the tide will be leaving that stick. As I said, you don't want to drift too far. You catch more shad when the net slacks up, the tide slack up. When the tide is strong, the net is sweeping like that off the bottom. When the tide weakens, the net goes down more till it gets to the bottom of the river. We leave that stick there and watch it for a while, and after a while you see it rising. Maybe come back to about there. Now, when that tide begins to rise and come back that far to this stick, you know you got about 3/4 of an hour tide running yet in the river.
He must know the tide because shad are caught during slack water as the tide's movement slows down. The Indians must also observe the wind and the water current. Only straight stretches of river or reaches may be fished. Here the nets are free to drift without snagging on the bends of the river. Great skill is required in fishing such a reach. In recent years, the shad catch has dwindled. Pamunkey fishermen have responded by establishing a new Pamunkey shad hatchery during the shad season. Eggs and sperm are collected, fertilized, and circulated in tanks for a 4-day incubation period. The hatchlings are floated directly into the river. The Indians have already noticed signs that the shad population is increasing. The meandering creeks and swampy stretches along the Pamunkey River abound with turtle and terrapin, especially the snapping turtle. Because of this, turtling has remained important to the Pamunkey Indians. As the Pamunkey practice it, turtling is neither fishing nor trapping. It is similar to fishing because the Pamunkey use lines and baited hooks, but it is akin to trapping because the fishermen use the river cane pole as a device to trap the turtle alive. The cane holds the hook and line and is placed in the muddy river bottom to catch turtles as they feed. Chief Cook begins by cutting a number of cane poles. To these poles, he attaches a piece of heavy line and a hook. Eels are used for bait. They are cut into small sections and attached to the hooks.
We bait these things with eel. We catch some eels about as big as your thumb, and you cut them up in little pieces about 1 inch long. And the turtles will go wild over the eels. Is the best bait you can use. When you don't have eels, we use catfish, but eels are much better.
The baited poles are merely stuck in the bottom mud and left until the next day or the next high tide. Upon his return, Chief Cook visits each pole to see if a turtle has been caught.
Now look, on the next pole they got one. See one on top of water? I just tell you, sometimes they come to the top. And sometimes they stay to the bottom and drown. I got a bigger one this time. A little bigger.
The turtles are always ready to bite and cannot be left to wander in the bottom of the boat. Instead, they are safely stored in barrels.
But many times I've been out and filled a barrel up like that. And so sometimes I've even had more than I could get in the barrel. Then you got to start tying them around in the boat.
While turtles remain high on the gourmet's list of edibles, the catch has decreased in recent years.
And turtle got several different kind of meats. You got beef and lamb, and all sorts of chicken. Different parts of the meat taste different. I like the neck better than any part. That tastes more like chicken.
Of the surviving Pamunkey traditions, one of the most unique is the Deadfall Trap. It is used to trap animals with marketable pelts: muskrat, raccoon, and otter. This ancient device is always made from materials at hand. The Deadfall Trap is considered far superior to the modern steel spring trap and costs nothing but labor. It does not rust in the water, and the trapped animal is killed with no damage to the valuable pelt. Deadfall traps can be repaired easily from season to season and may be used for many years.
That trap over 100 years old. Way over 100 years old. I've been just rebuilding it all the time.
The type of traps that the Pamunkey are making can be traced back to the Civil War period. I mean, the exact same traps, with maybe one break. Frank Speck said in 1928 that, and he's the one who did so much of the research on the Pamunkey and the whole Tidewater area of Virginia, and as well as other Indian groups. And he said that the type of traps and the trigger which the Pamunkey are using is the exact same type that's used all over the Tidewater area of Virginia by all the Indian groups. So the Pamunkey seems to be the only group that have preserved this type of trap, which was used universally throughout the Tidewater area of Virginia. Some of the exact same traps that he examined in the mid to late 1920s were built during the Civil War period, or immediately after the Civil War period, because the people who were using them know that their grandfathers had built the traps, and they've been used continually ever since. And when I was there in the mid to late 70s, I went out with Ernest Bradby, and I helped him set some deadfalls for trapping coon, and I think mostly coon he was after. And I did a photo documentary of those with some slides and so forth. And in the process of this boating over a several-day period, we came across some old traps. And I asked about these. I mean, I could tell they were traps. Maybe no one else could. I just saw some poles, some ends of poles sticking up 2 or 3 inches out of the water in a slight little pattern. Looks like a box. And so I asked about that. I said, Ernest, what are these things over here? And he said, well, you see that trap right there? That's one that I built with my father 35 years ago, and it's still there. being somewhat of a doubting Thomas, I went over to it and pulled on one of the poles and pulled the thing up out of the mud. And whereas just all that you saw standing out of the mud was this little rotted little stump, it looked like any old dead tree. When you pulled it up, it looks like the thing had been cut yesterday. There's this piece of wood, you know, a foot or so long, which has been chopped with an axe into a point, and it looks like it had been cut yesterday. The deadfall is used throughout the entire area, all the way up to the northernmost Algonquin people. And a lot of the information on the details of the deadfalls are missing. We've got in the southernmost group, we've got the Pamunkey, and we know the details because for some reason or another, Pamunkey have continued to trap. So here's a trap that was probably built in Speck's day, which was built the same as, he said, the type of traps that were built during the Civil War period. So we've got a 100-year period there in which the exact same general type of trap was being built. The only difference today, maybe they're using boards instead of round sticks, poles, logs, and they're using, well, these cross ties in a railroad bed instead of big round trees. I mean, that's a minor difference.
In the past, beaver poles were used to build the walls of the traps. Today, any odd boards or sticks are used.
This is the end of the trap. And I put this stick in the back of it in case it was ever moving. Probably a high tide would move it, would come back and the boat would drift away. So I always put something in the back to keep it from going backward. And then I put the boat in here. Then I built a little box in here. And that's where the triggers go. I put the triggers in here. And the buckshot comes in from the other end. And this collar is made from a grapevine, wild grapevine. You plant that collar under the end of that board, and this is called a sweep stick. A sweep stick. Now you place that sweep stick under the collar.
The trigger mechanism remains unchanged over time. It is constructed of sapling wood and consists of elbow joint branches inverted to form hooks.
The Pamunkey trigger is, you've got a couple of forked, well, elbow jointed sticks which are driven into the ground. You've got a short, well, a stick of variable length, a small stick which goes across here, and the bait is fastened to this portion of the stick over here. And the bait would be inside the deadfall. When the animal goes into the deadfall and starts getting at the bait, what he does is he lodges this stick, wiggles it, loosens it, and this stick, which is this stick right here, holds down this shorter stick here, which is tied to the string which goes up to the spring pole at the top of the on the outside of the trap. So when this stick right here, this long horizontal stick is wiggled just the least little bit, this smaller stick here flips up and goes up the string, and down comes the door or the log or whatever mechanism they have.
We use a wire parsnip. You stick a piece of that on a stick like that, and you push it in from this end back there. You put the bait on there, and you push it back under there, like that. And then you put your other stick like that. Now this here had to be tied onto the collar, because if you don't, it'll drift away. But you put the weight on there. Now when he goes under there from that end, that's why I got it all blocked off all the way. So he can't come in but one way. There should be a box right in here. Well, I've been trapping this one marsh for 73 years. I was telling my Indians that a while. I've been all over this place here thousands of times, as far as you can see up there.
Well, the Pamunkey are still interested in trapping up until this present generation, and they've got an excellent trapping grounds along the Pamunkey River there. It's very conducive to trapping. And they have stayed coherent as a tribe. They've got their reservation. They're one of the few Indian groups anywhere in the country that never was moved to the reservation. The reservation they have is where no one else except them has ever lived, and they have all their lands except this little reservation taken away from them. So they've got all their cultural roots can be tied back to hundreds of years at that particular location, all up and down the river. And also, I just mentioned a moment ago how it's possible to trace this same type of trap mechanism from the southern area up to the Arctic. Then you start to wonder how far back in time can this be traced? And we know, we've got, you know, from my own research and specs, we know that the exact same type of trap has been used for the last, you know, 150 years or so, since the Civil War, without change, except using boards instead of round logs. And how far back, hundreds or thousands of years, could we push that into the past? Well, that's problematical, but I would say without sticking my neck out too far, that you could push that back for several hundred years. So we've got a trap mechanism type which, on a deadfall, which has probably been used in this whole mid-Atlantic region at least for several hundred years and over a period of several hundred miles. And why? Well, because it works. It's very efficient.
According to many tribal members, very little of the information available today focuses on fishing, turtling, and trapping in the past 150 years. In fact, the most lucrative source of information regarding these customs are the memories of the elder members of the tribe. The collective memories of these people will continue to dim with the passage of each year. The very important impact of fishing, trapping, and turtling on the Pamunkey Indians is quickly becoming a part of lost history that will only be recorded as a small portion of several written texts, many of which the Indians themselves find inaccurate. This videotaped documentation has allowed for the first time one of Virginia's last traditional chiefs to comment in his own words concerning the preservation of a significant part of the history and culture of the Pamunkey people.